A very good evening to my lecturer. Today we're going to present about Sati Practice. So this slide is prepared by Siti Zawani, Farzana, Iskandar, Athilah Husna, and also me, Adriana. So the first one, what is Sati Practice? Sati is a traditional Indian practice of immolating herself on her husband's funeral pyre. The Sati tradition was prevalent among certain sectors of the society in ancient India, who either took the vow or deemed it a great honor to die on the funeral pyres of their husband. The term Sati is derived from the original name of the goddess Sati, also known as Dakshayani, who self-immolated because she was unable to bear her father Daksha humiliation of her living husband Shiva. The ritual of Sati was banned by the British government in 1829 by Lord Athilah. These are some examples in Sati practice. In 1987, a Rajput man was arrested after the Sati death of his daughter-in-law, Kunwar, who was just 18 years old. Now I pass the floor to Zawani.
I'll be talking about the history. So this tradition is original with the goddess of Sati, who burned herself to death in a fire that she created through her yogic powers, which she obtained after her father had insulted her husband. The practice of Sati is recounted by a 1st century BCE Greek author named Diodorus Siculus. Diodorus mentioned Sati stones, which were memorials of all the wives that have passed along with their husband. A stone was created for each wife after she gave up her life. And these stones were all collected into a shrine. The earliest memorial that has been discovered dates from 510 BCE. In 1829, when India was informally ruled by Great Britain, the law to make Sati illegal was passed because the act was seen by the British as harsh and cruel to a woman. Although it was made illegal, there were controversies over whether the Sati practice was a religious act, and if so, should that be taken into consideration before prohibiting it. In 1987, Rup Kanwa, a woman from the village of Diorala in Rajasthan, India, was married to her husband for only 8 months before he died. She decided against taking her life in front of thousands of people. Politicians and activists believe that Rup Kanwa was then subsequently drugged by the liquid inside the seeds of an opium poppy flower and pressured to take her life by those around her. Some people even say that she had supernatural powers because her eyes were glowing red as she burst into flames. Police concluded that a group of men had been guilty of having drugged her, and they were placed under arrest. Sati was rather harsh tradition, but the significance of these rituals was important to many Indian traditions. The thought of self-sacrifice in this way is foreign to Western traditions, and the thought of being burned alive is worse. Sati is now illegal and no longer practiced, but the memories of the dead woman from this tradition remain, and they will always remind us of this social practice. Now, I will pass this presentation to Athilah.
So, I will be talking about the banning of Sati. Under the rule of the Muslim Mughal emperors, Sati was banned more than once. Akbar the Great first outlawed the practice around the year 1500. Aurangzeb tried to end it again in 1663 after a trip to Kashmir where he witnessed it. During the European colonial period, Britain, France, and the Portuguese all tried to stamp out the practice of Sati. However, the issue of Sati became a rallying point for British Christians. By 1850, British colonial attitudes against sati has hardened. In 1681, Queen Victoria issued a proclamation banning sati throughout her domain in India. Finally, Nepal officially banned it in 1920. Prevention of Sati Act. Today's India's Prevention of Sati Act 1987 makes it illegal to coerce or encourage anyone to commit sati. Then, forcing someone to commit sati can be punished by death. However, a small number of widows still choose to join their husband in death. At least 4 instances have been recorded between the year 2000 and 2015. So I will pass it to Nurin.
Okay, hi. So now I will be talking about little known facts about the Indian custom of sati. Here are 10 sad facts about the Hindu custom sati in which women burn themselves alive. Okay, the first one is that, for the introduction, the custom of sati, a widow killing herself following a husband's death, seems fairly barbaric in some ways, prehistoric almost, and it is on both accounts. But is this really so different from what we see in something like Romeo and Juliet that was famous? Two people deeply in love entering the hereafter together. So there is both two-side ways to seeing sati. Okay, the first one is, at its peak, several thousand widows a year burn themselves to death. Sati has not been associated with India, primarily on the basis that it was the last place commonly or visibly practiced. But India was hardly the first or only culture to engage in this sort of ritual. If you all, even though it is not very famous, but Korea, North Viking, China, and Vietnam are some of the places that also practice sati, but not as regular as India. Yes, still not quite as regular as public burnings were in India at one point, because at one point, sati, several thousand people died practicing sati. Okay, the second one. Some women intentionally poison or otherwise knock themselves out beforehand. The iconic image of sati is that a woman climbing onto her husband's funeral pyre or being set afire with it. So that means that the iconic image is that you go inside the fire without being unconscious. That means you are conscious while you walk into the fire. But then some women could also choose a less painful method. Poison or drug overdose was often the first choice, though in some cases they would administer just enough to make the woman comatose, so that she would be burned alive but not while awake. Other times she might option for a snake bite or a blade to the wrist or throat before burning, so that she would still be alive but not awake. For the third point, pregnant women weren't allowed to do it. There have always been rules surrounding sati and who could commit it. Women with young children to care for, or who were pregnant or menstruating, couldn't commit ritual suicide. This was seen as sacrificing the life of the child along with them. And then, for this part, there was also a belief that pregnant women must deliver her baby first and then commit this sati 2 months after giving birth. The fourth sad facts about sati is that a widow had the option of changing her mind, even though she'd take a hit in karma points. That means she'd take a hit from the Hindus' belief. Women who did commit it were said to have died virtuous and chaste, which is big deal in Hindu culture. That means that you will be born Holy, huh? Okay, a woman who dies has much better karma and has a better chance of being reborn into a better life in the next cycle, perhaps even with her husband. In any case, any woman could opt out of sati at any point. Custom demanded that a male relative remain near her funeral pyre to pull her out, should she change her mind at the last possible moment. So the fifth text is, rich people were supposed to do it. Okay, about 1100 before Common Era, references Vedic injunctions against sati in terms of social class. He writes that a Brahmin woman, one of the higher social caste, shouldn't follow her husband into death. This has something to do with the fact that Brahmins were leaders of the community, major landholders, and the death of two such people at the same time would throw things into disarray. It might also be a safeguard against children murdering their fathers for the inheritance. Then again, it might just be the case of the upper class saying to the lower class, yeah, that's not for me, that's just for you. And then, the sixth point is, it was practiced before recorded history. Okay, our best records date the concept of sati at least as far back as the Vedic age, 105,000 before Common Era. Even then, sati is spoken of largely in past tense. Estimates say it had been practiced for at least 500 years prior, about 2000 before Common Era. That would make the practice of sati at least as old as the earliest recorded history in Asia, and probably at least as old as Egyptian hieroglyphic writing. Okay, so I'm sorry, the facts are very long. Okay, sati may have influenced the Vikings and inspired Catholic witch burnings. Around the time that witch burnings became a thing in medieval Europe, Christian culture was already well aware of the practices of heathen Vikings and Hindus. The practice of burning witches descends directly from Viking funerary rituals in which a king's widow or female thrall would be burned alive with her lord. Okay. The eighth fact is that it's named for the goddess Sati, who burned herself alive. This has been explained by my friend Siti Zawani. Okay, but to be more detailed, Sati was the wife of Shiva the Destroyer. She was herself a powerful goddess having power over all heat and energy, including lightning and thunder. Sati agreed to be born to earth when a king and queen who couldn't have children came to her and begged her to be born through them with a condition. The condition is that if ever she would be mad, she would ever to be insulted, she would assume her terrifying celestial form of Adishakti and destroy them all. Okay, when Sati met Shiva the Destroyer in his earthly form, her father the king disapproved. She married Shiva anyway, leading to an argument between herself and her father. In her rage, Sati assumed her celestial form Adishakti. All the gods and earth trembled as Adishakti rained down fire and destruction. Unfortunately, her own earthly body of Sati was consumed and burned by Adishakti's radiance. Adishakti, seeing she had no way to return to Shiva, turned her power on herself and burned herself alive in devotion to him. So that's how Sati was believed to be created. Okay, for the night, it's been controversial for a very long time. The Hindus were practicing this practice for a long time, but then they not really supported it. First, because suicide is prohibited by the Hindu religion, instantly gaining one bad karma and sentencing one to become and appealing in the next life. That means you are not pretty. It was also previously banned by the Vedic tradition Hindu, strong form, but saw a sort of revival around the 10th century. The 12th century Veerashaiva movement sought to outlaw it completely. When the British finally did outlaw sati in India in 1861, it was largely by request of the locals. According to one census taken in 1829, approximately 600 acts of sati were still performed every year, even though it was banned. Okay, and the last point is that you will probably alive when India made sati illegal. That is, as long as you were born before 1989. Okay, in 1988, the Indian Parliament finally adopted the Sati Prevention Act, which once and for all put out the embers of burning widows as act on the subcontinent. This act not only prohibited sati itself, but severely criminalized any type of aiding, abetting, or glorifying of the act. Finally, what should have been done a long time ago. So now I will pass my the last presentation to my friend Iskandar.
Now we see the video. We prepare a video for you. Okay, now I will explain to you about the chronology of the sati. Okay, when the young man married the girl, and the young man is died. This is a long time ago, before the century. Then the woman, the bride, volunteered to do sati, and I want to do the sati practice. Yes, you can see. And she is burned alive, and I hope that she can meet her husband in afterlife. For the conclusion, I don't think the sati is need to continue in this era, because it's not illegal and not care about the woman. Because the fact that I have read, the woman is forced simply to do the sati, not she is volunteer. So that's all from us. Thank you.